Welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 12, Week 8 Power Rankings. 1 week left in the book. We have almost all of our playoff spots wrapped up too. Just a matter of getting those play-in games calculated for. I am your host, IllLogic, coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant. As always, I am joined by SteveChuck, coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffets.
Hey, everybody.
I know last week we got right into the matches and had no trades, but the trade deadline was technically a little bit into week 8, and we had one whole transaction, the last one of the season. It's the Route 1 Burbs trading out the Serena, and in comes the Electros. Steve, this is kind of interesting. Serena was, I think, the 5th round pick for the Burbs, but it just was not working out for them.
Yeah, it was something that they had barely brought, if at all. Really wasn't fitting. In the generational shift, losing a lot of key things. If I recall correctly, it loses things like high jump kick and triple axel. Losing some key moves, knockoff. I'm making a lot of this stuff up on the spot, but I believe it's a lot worse now. And we have seen Electros be pretty good on the Agrons in the other conference. A nice slow Volt Switch pivot that has really good coverage options, especially on the special side and damage. So getting that piece for their team, also, of course, having no weaknesses is really nice for something that can be used kind of as that slow, bulky pivot. So really great mod. I definitely like it and would like to use it myself. So great pickup.
And keeps up that ground immunity over the resistance too, which is nice. This does say a lot about the state of hazard removal, though, in this gen, if we're not even going to keep the Serena. Yeah, it's dire straits out there for hazard removal, everyone. Keep those boots close. Alright, with that, though, we can get into recapping the Week 8 matches. Week 8 was a big one, of course, but maybe more so for the Paldean Conference, who had a pair of 4-2 teams face off in a pair of battles. One of those, of course, would be the sibling rivalry of Steve's Waterdeep Wobbuffets and Joey's Akron Agrons. Steve has owned the Agrons throughout the league's history, but this one was close. A couple ways the battle could have turned one way or the other with an especially interesting endgame. So that, in addition to it being a Joey L, means it is our feature match for Week 8. Go check out Fruit Taco's breakdown on that on this channel. What a fun one. Next up, the other 4-2 teams facing off were Greg's Quiet Majesty and Joe's Boulder Bulldors, and this time the Quiet Majesty joined the Wobbuffets in the playoffs, this off the back of a 3-0 win. Early on, Talonflame burns the Garchomp, then Trick Room is up on Hat. Serena U-turns on Talonflame on the last turn. Trick Room, another burn. Jeez, we're repeating through a few mons here on another attempt at Trick Room. Magnezone with Electric Terrain, that's kind of cute. Both coaches swap out multiple times after Garchomp and Talonflame wearing each other down with U-turn and Rough Skin. Talon can roost up though. Turn 21, finally, there's a breakthrough. See Titan in neutral against Hatterene and Heavy Slam with a big KO. There's just so much switching around here. Nothing taking too much chip though, except maybe Garchomp. Kingambit hit to half, Serena to a third, Talon roosting back up, then on a Sylveon Wish, Magnezone with the next breakthrough thanks to a crit on Flash Cannon. But after that, it's misplay time. A good swap into Talonflame on Titan's EQ, but it clicks Terra Fire that turn. That means the turn after Willow doesn't work, and Talonflame finally goes down to liquidation. Honkin' Bonkin is looking to bonk. Terra Fairy Tinglu, though, survives 2 Ice Skull crashes and thus gets to KO, but it's low now, so Chiyu is out. And Flame charges to KO. Is it over? Overheat KO's Magnezone. A lowered special attack could mean there's a shot. Too cheeky though. Kingambit sucker punches on a nasty plot. There goes that progress. Overheat downs that too. It's up to Iron Valiant. It survives the overheat. Aura Sphere KO. The comeback? Not with Scarf Palmot in the back. A double shock finishes off the close battle. Next match, it isn't just those 4 looking for playoffs. The Close Combat Club is still in it with a win, which they secure with a 6-0. Rocks up early for the Zanesville Zigzagoons, and the club is forced to scramble around with 3 switches in 3 turns, but they learned their lesson this time. Nice boots. Quiverdance Volcarona, then Giga Drain, then a potentially greedy second Quiverdance on Goldango, only 27%. Mimikyu switched in. That's not how that's supposed to work. It goes down to Fiery Dance. Cloyster down to Giga Drain. Goldango to Fire Dance. Espeon holds on, but does minimal damage. Rotom down to Giga Drain, and Giga Drain to finish off Garganachi. This what happens when Volcarona doesn't get sacked? 6 KOs is a nice sign, and the club stays alive. And finally, well on his way to an undefeated season, Elfowls and his Newport Noctows with another win, though this one was closer than it probably should have been. A 3-0 over the Kanto Kinglers. Great Tusk rids Slowbro of the helmet. Fortress gets up rocks, but for Richeraf gets paralyzed early. Low Kick's trying to do damage, but the Dozo Bozo tanks all physical attackers. Low Kick's down. Salamence in, and after Future Sight damage, Poltegeist is in range of the EQ, which does KO and grabs a Moxie boost. Fortress in to tank Outrages, but it was already paralyzed, so it gets him immobilized at the worst time, and it goes down 2. Iron Moth in, it doesn't KO the Corviknight switch, and who gets a Brave Bird off before going down. Groudile in, EQs twice on Great Tusk, and it's Scarf, so thanks to a third one, it gets ahead of the Rapid Spin boost and KOs that too. Dozo to tank an EQ, but it's down to 30%. Gardevoir out to revenge after it finally goes down. Terra Steel on Dozo, good luck breaking through that. Dozo and Slowbro now, it's a stalemate. Let's make that Slowbro versus Farigiraf. T-Bolt brings Slowbro low, but it refuses to swap out thanks to those hazards. Farigiraf versus Paralysis, but it gets a Wish off into Dozo, bring that back up to 3/4. Farigiraf at 11%, but the Wish comes off. T-Bolt takes out Slowbro. Gardevoir has a sub and speed, but it just doesn't do damage to Farigiraf, so it's cleaned up, and Salamence has to try and set up, but just can't. The Giraffe helping out the Noctows this time. And with the Wooper Troopers on by, that is what happened in the Paldean Conference. In Johto, there are quite a few moving parts, so let's look at the Cincinnati Incineroar taking on the Adams Pidgey Emporium. Well, if that turn counter is any indication, maybe this was a mistake to look at, but it's ultimately a 5-0 victory for the Incineroar. Some early chip on Meow and Annihilate, partners in an earlier trade, of course. Meow is very low, swaps into Garganachi. Leaf Storm, 3% left on Garg, and it takes down the Meow relatively early. Garg back in on Toxapex to give it a chance to recover back up. Garg getting a solid body press off into Ditto, gets that low progress. Wish Screamtail, maybe not. Donphan's Rocks. Corviknight Defog, a few turns of Toxapex and Garg staring at each other. Sylveon Sting with Calm Mind. Haze Toxapex. T-Wave Screamtail. Garg in. Pex and Garg staring at each other again. In the middle of it, Espathra and Corviknight both in. Volcarona then Terra Fairies after 2 Calm Minds. Can't KO with Bug Buzz, Roost Espathra on the switch out, and Espathra forced out by T-Wave Screamtail. More moving around. Sylveon gets off 2 Calm Minds and then gets paralyzed. Then Terra Fire there, Terra Blast does some damage. Screamtail is sitting there, allows Sylveon to get off 2 more Calm Minds, enough time for it to get to +4, so Hyper Voice eventually breaks through to KO. Ditto in, it's not even paralyzed, but with +4 special defense, it's doing nothing, so Ditto goes down too. Haze Pex is in, and we're in for a long one here, aren't we? Some switching going on. Palafin can get Corviknight low, but it doesn't matter because it can Roost later. Wait, is that Volcarona setting up? 2 Quiver Dance, but eats Assault Cure. 2 Giga Drains takes care of Garganachi. Palafin can force it out, though. What a hero. Turn 122. Sylveon and Toxapex again. Oh, Corviknight out to Roost, and down it goes. Back to Pex. Oh, Volcarona's in. 3 Quiver Dances versus 2 Calm Minds. The Sylveon wins that one, too, and at full health again. Just Pex left. How does it actually break through? It's a struggle, literally. Pex runs out of power points and goes down, finally, bringing the Incineroar to a 5-0 victory and up to a 4-3 record. Next up, my Buffalo Bouffalant taking on the next 3-3 team, the Larian Lairon, but it's a 4-0 win for the Bouffalant, closer than usual. Quaquaval takes early damage from Chomp, no ground resist. Azu has Grass Knot for Dozo, who has Yawn in response. That's an offensive Dozo, trading evenly with Goldengo. Dozo swaps out, though, which lets the Golden Child recover up. Crocodile in, crunch the Chomp. That's a big defense drop. That means Chomp goes down the next turn after chipping Krook. Azu into revenge, but gets to take down Quaquaval instead after the Quaquaval Terra's Water. Glamora into revenge. Gastrodon lives on Rindoberry, but takes 58%. It goes down to the improved eyesight of the Glamora, which lets in Toxtricity. Swift Gear up on the switch. Boomburst KOs Dondozo and Throat Spray activated, threatening to sweep. Terranormal on Poltegeist, who survives Overdrive. Shell smashes back. Who wins the +2 speed game? It's Tox. KO that, plus the rest of the Lairon's team, and Toxtricity with 5 KOs, a 4-0 win for the Bouffalant. The last 3-3 team are the Music City Mudkips, who unfortunately have to play the Steamrollers as part of a brutal end of the schedule. But it was only 2-0 for the Steamrollers. Rocks exchanged early. Iron Jugulus takes down Grimmsnarl quickly after 2 in exchange for Light Screen. Sandy Shocks in to retaliate. Great read, KOing Tinkaton with Earth Power. Iron Treads in Rain is a surprising Armorer's answer. Chilly Reception out into the Titan to stop the rain, but Iron Treads hangs on to spin away Rocks and get off good damage at least. Pelipper absorbs Flare off, but Slowking can come in and heal up, which gets it out of range of Shadow Balls. Gengar goes down. Floatzel can clean that one up, though, and Sea Titan goes down to Rocks. Iron Jugulus down to Terra Water Liquidation. Now it's the Clawed Sire. Terra Water, that's a resist to water, and it stalls out Pelipper with Toxic. T-Spikes 2, is there a shot? Sandy Shock's T-Bolt does 77% and paralyzes. No playing around here. A 2-0 to defeat the Mudkips. And finally, the Route 1 Burbs clinch their playoff spot with a 6-0 win over the Miltanks. Chen Pao putting in work early, chipping Rotom down, then finishing it with Psychic Fangs. Goodbye to the screens you worked so hard on. Salamence and on Ceruledge, Dragon Dance, Terra Fire. That'll help it break through Mimikyu easily. Spider-Man Beam, Roaring Moon in, but it goes down immediately as it doesn't outspeed. Dual Wing Boot for Amoonguss. EQ takes down Ceruledge. Low kicks down Dual Wing Boot 2. Salamence, 5-mon sweep. And with the Summit County Psyducks on bye, that is what happened in the Johto Conference. A lot to talk about here with the playoffs, of course, but it's going to start over here in Paldea. Remember last time we had a pretty straightforward answer here as to who would clinch and who would not. The Noctows are still at 1. They're still undefeated at 7-0. Congratulations, though, to the Quiet Majesty and Waterdeep Wobbuffets, earning a playoff spot each as well with their wins this week. How are you looking at the Majesty and Wobbuffets here now?
Yeah, well, glad I made it here. Looking at a little bit at the rankings, of course, the Noctowl is still, of course, the one. The teams that were 4-2 that won getting rearranged such that teams that won are ahead. Order really still hasn't changed, as the Majesty are still having a pretty easy Week 9 opponent, the struggling Kinglers. Well, the Wobbuffets have the Week 9 opponent of the Noctowls, who have not dropped the game yet. A little bit difference there, giving the Majesty a bit of an edge, although the Wobbuffets do have a little bit of an edge in the differential. And then, of course, between the Boulders and Agrons, same thing here. Agrons we favored last time. We'll keep them favored, although the Boulders are, of course, right off at number 5.
How much do the player power rankings really matter when we know we're here for the playoffs? We know that we have 3 teams clinched in, but there is still at least one more spot in there as we look at the playoff race here. Agrons and Boulder still favored to make it at 4 and 3, and the Close Combat Club at 3 and 4 are right there too. Steve, this is pretty simple and straightforward. What's it take for any of these teams to get in, and what would it take for them to miss out?
For the Agrons and Boulders, it is a pretty straightforward path. If they win, they are in. If both teams win, they would both get in. One would be getting as a play-in game, but regardless, winning will definitely do it. Additionally, if both of them lose, the Agrons playing against the Close Combat Club and the Boulders playing against the Troopers, if both of these teams should lose, they would still both make it in at 4 and 4, in addition to the Close Combat Club also making it in, getting to 4 and 4. And that's really all there is to it. Both of the teams who are currently ahead at 4 and 3, they have their fate in their own hands. They just need to win and take it. But they also have that backup of, if they lose, the other game can also go their way, and they can make it in that way.
It's kind of interesting that we're on the precipice here. It's either 4 or 5 wins that will be the number 4 seed. That's actually going to be true in both conferences. But over here, there's a little bit more counterplay here, too, with the seeding going on here. Going back to the power rankings real quickly, the Noctowls are still undefeated 7-0, and that does mean that they have clinched the number 1 seed. But there's a little bit more that can go around here too. The Majesty Wobbuffets at 5 and 2, the Agrons Boulders at 4 and 3 can obviously swap around a little bit. So tell us a little bit about where people could end up there and who could be playing in a play-in game.
Yeah, for the 2 through 5, all the teams that were previously 4 and 2 last week, all of us can roughly change places. Of course, the Wobbuffets and the Majesty, being a game ahead, are favored to be higher, but a loss dropping them down to 5 and 3, while the other teams win to 5 and 3, gets us all in the same plane, giving to differential. The largest gap right now is the Wobbuffets, currently at plus 15, while the Boulders are at plus 6. Only a gap of 9, which could be overcome with the win and loss. So anything is possible here, 2 through 5. With the club also being able to potentially make it, there could be play-in games of the 4v5 and 3v6. So the 1 seed Noctowls are, of course, safe from a play-in game. They will definitely not have one. And whatever team ends up getting the 2, which would either be the Wobbuffets or Majesty with a win, or potentially the Agrons or Boulders with big enough wins, with big enough losses, would be safe from a play-in game, whereas the 4 and 5 will likely have play-in games, assuming more teams make it, as well as potentially the 3 having to do that play-in game against the Close Combat Club, who, if they make it, will certainly be the 6th seed.
All right, so again, club in at 6 if they do make it, 4 and 5 if there are them, will have a play-in game. 2 is safe. With that taken care of, let's move on then to Johto. We actually, over here, have 4 stars. Didn't really touch on it, but we are keeping the 4 here the same. The Bouffalant at the top with another win, the Steamrollers at number 2 with another win, the Burbs at number 3 with another win, and that clinches it for them. But maybe the most interesting clinch here, the Cincinnati Incineroar actually clinching a spot this week, too. There were a bunch of teams all clumped together there at 3 and 3, but the Incineroar are the only ones that won, and the other ones all lose. So they're ahead of the other teams at 4 and 3 compared to 3 and 4, so they actually have a lot of control over what happens next, but we'll get into that a little bit. First off, though, Steve, congrats to the Burbs and Incineroar for clinching playoff spots.
Yeah, Burbs and Incineroar both getting it done this week with wins. Wins, of course, not quite impressive enough to move them ahead of the other teams we have listed here, which their wins really haven't changed our minds about them. There was a little bit of a discussion we had about the Steamrollers and Burbs. Steamrollers coming out of a little bit of a rocky stretch where they lost 0-6 to the Burbs, close win 1-0 against the Laron, a fairly close 2-0 win over the Mudkips, whereas the Burbs have picked it up, winning the last 5 straight. So the Burbs on very much a hot streak here, and could be argued as the two, but that will definitely come in a lot more clear here once we talk about potential seeding and their ability to move up to that 2 spot.
Absolutely, that could be a fun playoff matchup should that arise as well, but we do have to talk about other teams that have the potential to make it. Yes, we have 4 locks, but again, if you tie the number 4 team, you can also get in. So this should be pretty simple and straightforward. We got the Laron, Mudkips, and Psyducks all here at 3 and 4. Tell us what needs to happen, Steve.
So the very important match here in Johto is the Incineroar and Psyducks game. If the Incineroar win and get up to 5 and 3, none of the other teams that still have a chance are able to make it. That is the end. There will just be the 4 teams, being the Bouffalant, Steamrollers, Burbs, and Incineroar. No one else. If the Psyducks are to beat the Incineroar and get up to 4 and 4 and notably not drop the Incineroar to 4 and 4, not only do the Psyducks get in, but that opens the door for any of the other 3 and 4 teams to also have a win and in game. The Mudkips playing the Burbs, with that, they could get in, as well as the Laron against the Emporium. So the key match for all these teams is they need the Psyducks to beat the Incineroar, and they also need to win, which is very convenient for the Psyducks, because them winning and the Psyducks winning would be the same condition.
And it's pretty interesting that we get the Incineroar as the ultimate gatekeeper here. If they win, they keep out everyone else for their comeback season. Let's talk a little bit then about some seeding here. We have more potential teams there. We also seem to have a little bit more gridlock at the top. What kind of movement are we seeing among those first 3 teams there, the Bouffalant, Steamrollers, and Burbs, and is there any way that can change?
So between the 1 and 2, that is going to be determined by the game this week between the Bouffalant and the Steamrollers. Winner is going to be the 1 seed. The loser will likely be the 2 seed. However, if the Steamrollers lose and the Burbs win, the Burbs are only 3 differential behind the Steamrollers, so a win could likely push them ahead of the Steamrollers in differential, taking that number 2 spot and dropping the Steamrollers to 3. Going further down the rankings, the Incineroar are the favorites for 4, of course. They can sneak up to 3. If they win, they can pass up the Burbs. If they lose, it would just require a 2-6-0s to kind of get the differential to go the way the Incineroar need. Definitely possible, but certainly unlikely. Other than that, the 3 and 4 teams that are all trying to get in this week with wins, their order cannot change relative to each other. The Lorraine Laron are currently ahead at +2 differential. Following them is the Music City Mudkips at -5, and then the Summit County Psyducks at -15. Those 3, if they make it, will always be in that order because they all have to win, and there's not enough room for them to rearrange within there. The Incineroar, with a loss, of course, will drop likely below the Laron, possibly below the Mudkips with enough differential. However, the Psyducks will always be the bottom seed if they make it in.
It's pretty interesting there, too. Over here, only the 1 seed is guaranteed to get that bye in the play-in game. Otherwise, we could have 7 playoff teams, which would mean 2 and 7, 3 and 6, and 4 and 5, which is absolutely ridiculous and fascinating. I'm here for that, especially if I can get the 1. And speaking of that, I guess we should just move along then to the final week preview. We've touched on how important a couple of these games are, but Steve, tell us about the important matchups in Paldea.
So the most important matchup in Paldea is definitely going to be the Close Combat Club and Akron Agrons. As we mentioned, the Agrons win and they're in. The club needs win and help. This match has the potential for 2 playoff teams' destinies here, so it is definitely the more important match. Additionally, of course, is the Boulders Trooper, the other match that has win and in implications for the Boulders. Of course, these 2 matches together are important for most of the teams here, as an Agrons loss and Boulders loss allows both the Agrons, Boulders, and club to make it in still. Meanwhile, 1 win for either side will guarantee the club is out, and the other team needs to win to make it in. The other matches over here are just important for seeding, of course. the Noctowls Wobbuffets. While not important for the Noctowls, it would be very beneficial for the Wobbuffets to try and get that 2 seed to avoid having a play-in game in the max scenario. Very similar for the Majesty, although they have a lot easier path to do it against the Ginglers.
And over in Johto, there is one win and end game. It is that Incineroar and Psyducks, which is so much more important than all of the other games here. The Incineroar win, it eliminates 3 different teams just with that. The Psyducks, Mudkips, and Lairon would all go bye-bye and have to wait until next season for another shot at the playoffs. But if the Psyducks win, they are in, and once again makes the Mudkips and the Lairon game important, because if they win those, then they will also be in. So check out these Incineroar Psyducks first, and then if that goes the way of the Psyducks, Mudkips and Burbs and Lairon and Pidgeemporium become very, very interesting. And of course at the top there, Bouffalant Steamrollers just for seeding, probably going to be the winners, the one, and the loser plays the Burbs in that first round, assuming that there aren't too many teams that make it in there and there are no major upsets. So a little bit there at stake there, but it's really the Incineroar Psyducks over in Johto. And that'll do it from us. We have 1 week left of the regular season, and then we'll see what we can do here for playoffs. A lot of fun, interesting games ahead. Looks like there is a good shot that we could have a bunch of playing games. Also, possibility we have 0, but you're going to have to find out what that is, what actually happens next time on the Week 9 Power Rankings. Thank you to Steve for joining me, and thanks to all of you for watching. Don't forget to check out the feature match for this week, and we'll see you all next time.